Kids are literally the best thing ever. The love that we both have for those kids is crazier. It hurts. Everybody's somebody's baby.
When I blame my partner for, let's say, my sadness, it's one of the ways that we secretly stay in our own conditioning.
In our society, we point to certain things and we say, that's bad, that's wrong, that's a terrible thing that person did in relationship. What men talk about in their circles behind the scenes is death by 1,000 cuts.
I'm Layla Martin. I'm your host of This Tantric Life. This podcast is for you to learn about and be able to use the incredibly powerful system of Tantra in your life. I have been teaching and studying classical and neo-Tantra for over 20 years. And when you apply that to sex, love, and relationships, as I love to do, you end up having conscious relationships, the deepest, most epic and magical sex, and the kind of intimacy that you get to be grateful for on your deathbed. And I want you to have your own magical journey in your own way that takes you from wherever you are now to the most outrageous and true and beautiful expression of sex, love, and relationships that is available to you. So as I drop into this conversation with Preston Smiles, we're going to talk about how to be in a long-term conscious relationship. Now, conscious relationship is a term that gets thrown around a lot, so I wanted to really define it for you and what my experience of it is. So in a conscious relationship, it means, number one, you and your partner are doing your work. Now, that might look like going to therapy, doing coaching, doing sacred sexual practices, right? Studying Taoism, studying Tantra. Might look like going and doing the Hoffman process, doing plant medicine ceremonies. In some way, shape, or form, your life is about doing the work and being aware. Now, you'll also hear Preston say at the end, for some people, maybe enjoying life is their life's work. Maybe being excellent at their dharma, their career, and parenting is their life's work. The point is that you're conscious about how you're doing life. And if any part of your life is out of alignment with your truth, you're willing to show up and do the work. Now, when two people are willing to come together and basically do a version of that in their own partnership, this is conscious relationship, which means that we want to have the best possible relationship, but we also acknowledge that relationship is a mirror. It's actually designed to show us ourselves, and that relationship will bring up things and show me things that I can only see in the relationship of partnership. If I'm totally single, I won't see those same things. Now, in conscious relationship, instead of pointing at my partner, blaming my partner, or leaving for someone else, what I'm going to do is take responsibility for what's arising and be willing to do the work, either with my partner in therapy or coaching, or with myself, right? And so this is what shifts from everyday relationship, let's say, to conscious partnership. The second piece of this is being willing to go in and see that relationship is a spiritual journey. So just like life is always teaching you, and life is never going to be only a walk in the park, right? No life well lived is only unicorns and rainbows. A life well lived has shadow and light in it, has challenge and beauty in it, has heaven and hell within it. So in conscious relationship, we're no longer just trying to get the fairy tale alone, but we're willing to show up for the entire process. We're willing to see that relationship is designed to trigger us, to challenge us, to show us truth, and that it's also designed to be a playscape of magic and beauty. Relationship is not different from life, right? And if you approach life saying, I only want to optimize for pleasure and I'm unwilling to feel pain, your life is not going to be as beautiful as possible, right? Part of the way that we get an extraordinary life is being willing to feel pain for the things that are worth it for us, right? If you have an excellent career, you have excellent health, you're going to do things that cause you pain sometimes. You're going to get up and go to the gym when you don't feel like it. You're going to choose a salad when you really wanted whatever, fried chicken or ice cream. You're going to get up and do the work starting at 6 a.m. and give your absolute best if you really care about your career. Conscious relationship is no different. I'm going to consciously choose to go through a process with this person because ultimately I know it's going to get me more of what I want. So I hope you enjoy this amazing conversation with Preston. And at the end of this podcast, I'll be sharing with you a short meditation and practice to be able to make this process real of how do I stop projecting so much onto my partner and take more responsibility for my own experience. I'll do a short meditation that will show you exactly how to do that. Welcome to this Tantric Life. I'm so excited for the conversation with Preston Smiles today. So he is a conscious entrepreneur, a master coach, and I think of him as a true spiritual artist because his poetry and sharings about his spiritual experiences, about truth, about wisdom, have personally touched me to the core. He said when I asked him what to share in the bio, he was like, I'm someone who makes stuff for the internet. And he makes really beautiful, mind-blowing pieces of just high truth for the internet. I also have deep respect for him and am having him here as a guest because to me, he embodies someone who has owned his spiritual wisdom, mastery, and ability to share and impact so many people in the world. And he has combined that with a deep 10-year journey of conscious partnership with his partner, Alexi, and also having several children along the way. So I love that he embodies divine masculine along with fatherhood and children, which is a lot of what we're going to discuss today. His journey in that, his journey through his partnership, and his journey into fatherhood while embodying such deep and potent spiritual wisdom. Preston, it's my deepest joy to have you here. I also love, we were sharing right before we started this, that we both have these great reasons for being tired. Mine is that I was doing like high witchcraft in the king's tomb in the Great Pyramid, and I was up all night having a dance party at the pyramids, and then all of a sudden I flew I don't know, 30 hours and was up at 4 a.m. from jet lag, and I was like, man, I don't know how good my brain's gonna be working. And you were like, I share the tiredness with you because
Because I was also in a deep spiritual practice, wiping poop and holding crying babies and going through that process, which is its own initiation. So it's all beautiful. It's all spiritual and it's hilarious. Yes, you're out there dancing in the tombs and I'm freaking, holding a baby, rocking and shushing and all the good stuff.
Yes. So I would love to start out with, if you want to share a little bit of the journey with your partner, Alexi, because you two have been together for 10 years and I've had the joy of knowing you almost since inception. I met you in LA back when you two were new and are newish as partners. And I heard a rumor, I don't know if it's true. You can tell me if this is wrong or not, or a misrepresentation, which is that you were on a couch, maybe you were traveling around, you were moving when you first got into partnership. And that part of your partnership really did initiate you into your power and ability to be a king and your deeper spiritual abilities and your gifts, your impact in the world. So I'd love to hear kind of who were you when you met Alexi and how did your partnership alchemize you into your higher power?
Yes, absolutely. That is true. I had just moved in with my mother when I met Alexi. Um, and I had been in the coaching world, in the coaching space since 2005. I met Alexi in 2013. And when I met her, I was on a blind date with someone else. And the moment I saw her, I was like, oh, that's my wife. And it was like a movie moment. I knew it. I instantly knew it. And I pursued her and we were friends and she wouldn't kiss me or anything like that for a couple months. And
Why
then
wouldn't she kiss you?
because she had other guys that were all bidding to marry her. And so she wanted to keep her space clean. Uh, and so she sort of kept us all semi at bay. And, we had some really beautiful moments. And I think she realized the same thing I did, which was, this is it. And interestingly enough for me, I had been a struggling coach. I had been in the space for quite a while. And, that year that I met her, I made $36,000 that year. And when I met her, within a month a month or two of us meeting, I moved back in with my mom and I said, hey, this is, not the timing I would have wanted to meet my wife or future partner on, but I'm clear that I have a vision and something that I have to bring forward. And I'm going to need to take some steps back to take some steps forward. And what's beautiful about her and our partnership is I was really practiced in giving my gift, right? I was extremely expressive, just out there going for it, charging. She already owned a house. She was an entrepreneur since she was like 9 years old, right? Like everybody I knew, mom, dad, sister, everybody I knew worked for people. And so she taught me so much around money, around business, around entrepreneurship. She built my first website. And within a year, I went from 36,000 to 150,000. And then the next year, 300, then the next year, 600, then the next year, 1 million. And I haven't stopped. And it's been interesting because oftentimes, especially from a man's perspective, we would like to build the entire thing before we invite a woman in. And anytime I'm coaching men who have that perspective, I share with them that I couldn't have built it without her, right? She was the catalyst, she was the medicine. And have I taken over and sort of like, taken charge? Absolutely. She was having babies, and I took the entire family and put it on my back. And still, right to this day, I'm, what would be considered the main breadwinner, or whatever you want to call that. But the invitation that I have for men is, even if it's not direct, right? Just Alexi, just having her in my space pulled a primal aspect of me out that said, I must protect, I must serve, right? And what does protection look like in this modern world? Well, a part of it is being able to, go on dates and do fun things. And she inspired me to do better and be better, and showed me, where I was still hiding, even when it wasn't direct, right? Just her way of being. And I'm going to tell you a really funny story that is funny and not funny, but we, I think it was like 6 to 9 months later, we ended up moving in together. And I, I used to go surfing early in the mornings. So I always missed her in the mornings. And so, as just like a regular dude, I never used to like brush my teeth or do anything at night. But that's what she did, right? So she'd be like, you're not going to brush your teeth? And like suggesting, like lightly suggesting. So I started catching on, and we would brush our teeth together. And every time she would put toothpaste on her toothbrush, I would have this visceral reaction where I wanted to like jump up and karate chop it out of her hand, because she would pour like half the bottle on the toothbrush, right? And I'm like, oh my God. Because in my mind, I need to pay for this, right? I need to pay for our lives, right? I need to be the man. And every time she would do it, I would notice this crazy like reaction, um, like nails on a chalkboard kind of thing. And I had been teaching that there's 4 aspects of what it means to be human, right? We're biological beings, we're linguistic beings, we're social and historical beings, and we are quantum beings. And in the social and historical, I had to take my own medicine and ask myself what was really going on here.
Mm.
And what was going on was that I was diving knee deep into scarcity every time she put that toothpaste on that brush. And I realized that although my mom had moved us and herself out of the ghetto, the lack and fear and scarcity had not, right? We had a new address, but the consciousness followed us. And so, I started to think about me as a child, and how, my mom would say, oh, do you want $5 for lunch? And I'd say, oh no, I'll just take $2. Right. And so this part of me that was constantly calculating everything was showing up in our relationship, and literally viscerally making me like almost sick and angry. And it was such a beautiful invitation, again, for me to level up, because I noticed, oh, you're in scarcity, right? Which was the invitation into abundance. And so relationship has been like that across the board. And I wish it on anybody who truly desires it, because there's no hiding. It's the hardest workshop in the world to take.
Mm. And what allowed you to have the wisdom, right? Because when I reviewed your Instagram before this, there is a lot of messaging from you, which I love, of like, relationship is work, right? There is nowhere to hide. Your shadows come up. That's part of the process, right? And like, I feel like a lot of us know that, but then when it's actually happening, we want to run the fuck away, right? You're like, oh God, right? The guy that I started a partnership with, it's as soon as we met, it was like, like your deepest wounds, there's nowhere to hide. And fuck, I would, I don't want to leave at all, right? Like I want to be here. I'm a fuck yes to this person. And the wounding is scary as shit, right? And we get so much messaging that with the right person, it's supposed to be rainbows, unicorns, butterflies, angel choirs constantly. So what gave you the ability and the wisdom to stay and do the hard work?
There's a few things, but one of them is willingness, right? I have wanted to run. I have ran. I have left the room physically and emotionally. But also I've recognized that, no matter where you go, there you are. And the as above, so below, as within, so without. No matter where I go in relationship, I'm going to meet that part of me. And so do I want to do it with this beautiful soul who has all these aspects that I admire and all these aspects that trigger me? Or do I want to go find someone else and have this whole thing happen all over again? And so for me, it's like, am I willing to sit in my own personal hell, or am I willing to, take another look?
Yeah.
And go into the internal workshop that is required to sort of dissipate some of the things. A lot of it is not ours. That's the biggest thing for me. Going back to social and historical programming, I recognize that a lot of my wounds and a lot of the patterns that were showing up were my dad's, his dad's, and his dad's. They were my mom's, her mom's, and her mom's. They were Disney. They were black male. They were all these things that were sort of in the space. And as conscious choice makers, right? As the conscious community, we get to be conscious choice makers. But you can't intervene in a world you can't see. And so the name of the game is, can I see this world? What is occurring? Right. So I invited myself over and over and over again to be an observer of the thoughts and the sensations and all the things, and then go, ooh, do I still want that?
Yeah.
Do I still choose this part of me to come forward without making it wrong or bad? Right. We started this podcast before we hit play. I shared that my truth is that there's no way to miss. I step left, God. I step right, God. I step up, God. I step down, God. It's all the profane and the profound. There's no way to miss. And so for me, one of the biggest pieces was not shaming myself for the mistakes that I made. Right? They weren't, as conscious as I would have loved them to be. And yet, here we are. Still breathing, still loving, right?
Yeah, I just had this amazing initiation actually when I went to Egypt. I was just there for 10 days, and on the flight over, long story short, like Egypt Air wouldn't give me my bag for 7 days. They basically were making a consistent argument that because I had a business class ticket from London to Cairo that was purchased separately than from Cairo to Aswan, that they couldn't give me my bag, even though they were all on Egypt Air, all business class, and Egypt Air didn't sell a whole leg from London to Aswan. Anyways, it didn't matter. They weren't going to give me my bag. And I was on a boat, so I couldn't purchase extra things. And in those bags, I had a few things. Number one, I had an air purifier, which I was really, really, really excited about. Number two, I had clothes that I had purchased that reflected like the new Layla, right? And it was like a vibey, sceney situation, 200 people on a boat having the best time ever, like so so magical, right? And really just in deep awe of the culture and the beauty and the magic of the people of that country, and so many initiations into the ancient wisdom. But in my head, I had an Egypt trip that had number one, an air purifier, and number two, dope clothes, and number three, as I learned later, tampons and makeup and face wash that belonged to me, also unheeled shoes, because I was like, yo, I'm getting on the plane, I'm stepping up my style. So I wore these cool heeled boots, and then I get to Egypt and I'm like, the fuck, like I have to like go to all the temples in heels, this what? And like people don't have extra pairs of flat shoes in my size. So anyways, the first 3 days, it was not a spiritual experience. Like I kept judging myself for not having a more spiritual experience and just being Zen. I know, I was pissed off. I was like, I want my stuff. And it was literally 2:45 in the morning, and I found myself knocking on doors, having to literally ask people for a pair of panties, a tampon, because I'd started my period and now was bleeding through my pair of borrowed shorts, and number three, a pair of socks. So as I was doing that, I was like, Layla, I was like, the reason that you're suffering is because you cannot let go of the trip in your mind, the trip that you thought you were going to have. And what you have to do is accept the trip that God wants for you, which is a trip in which you are begging for panties, a tampon, and underwear at basically 3 a.m. from part friends and part strangers. And if you could just accept the trip that God wants for you, you would be having the time of your life. And then I just started laughing, and I got my tampon, and I destroyed the shorts, and it was like, it was the thing. And I was like, here we are, right? And so it's, if there was a missing, it might be trying to live the life in our heads rather than the life that's in front of us. And that's not even a miss, right? Because God wants everything, including living the life in your head sometimes instead of the life that's right in front of you. So correct. I feel you in that.
So beautiful. And that's fun. That's so interesting. I guarantee you remember that story, 5-10 years from now.
And being in my swanky swimsuit.
Yes, exactly. No, that's so perfect. I love that.
Well, I would love to hear, could you break down for me, like, what does it look like between you and Alexi when you're like, okay, let's do the work? Like stuff is here. What does it actually look like to do the work in a conscious relationship and to do the work 10 years in with kids?
Yep. Right now, it looks pretty epic, but even 3 years ago, it was like psychological warfare.
Yeah.
Because oftentimes when we know a bunch of stuff, we use it as weapons to justify
Totally.
and to be righteous. And both of us have, as you can see, or have maybe been around, both of us have really big personalities. She's an A-type personality. She's a boss chick, and so am I, right? And so when you get two people like that who both think they're right, it could be pretty hard to deal with. And take it a step deeper, Alexi and I both have similar wounds. So we both grew up performing for love, if you may. And so there's this part of me, and this is very common, actually. A lot of men, especially modern men, have this come up. And when I'm coaching, especially in rooms with only men, this comes up every time, which is I do 10 times, 20 times more than my dad. I do 1,000 times more than any dude that she even knows. And yet I can do 400 things. And on the 400th one time, if it's not exactly how she wants it to be, she destroys me and pretends like none of that happened, right? And so that's like dude talk 101. They're like, are you fucking serious? Like, I just literally broke my entire back to take care of you. And you're like, I didn't want that color. We've had some moments like that from both of us, right? She's an overachiever and wants to do everything for everybody, and self-included. And so our fights used to be pretty entertaining. But to tell you the truth, also, the work for us, even then, when it was really hard, we've been on the brink of separating, I'd say once, really, twice if you're really pushing it. And each time, both of us had the gift of understanding that for somebody who's been through lots of trauma in their life, it can take up to 4 days to get your body back to homeostasis. And so both of us knew and know that when we are in those spaces, to take space, to say less, and to we have a culture of repair and apology and not trying to fix and be right. And that's taken many years for us to get each other's cadence. And, you know, a friend of mine was asking me the other day, he's like, how are you guys? I was like, we're the best we've ever been. And he said, well, why do you think that is? I said, I'll speak for myself. Um, Alexi has complained about or to me that she would like to experience the same level of space holding that I do for clients and our children for her. And while that was a hard pill to swallow and made me actually really upset, because I'm like, well, I want the same. I'm out there holding the whole damn world. Can you do it for me? You know, like we're both playing that game, right? But somebody's got to go first. And the partner who's more resourced gets to do that, period. And so at some point, I really took that on. And I asked myself, what is it that I'm doing different with my clients and with our children than with her? And the one piece that I could find is I don't believe my clients. I don't really believe them. I know that there's content they're sharing, but the context that I'm holding for them is God, pure love, pure light, right? I understand that they are experiencing something, right? Expressing and experiencing something. And yet I do my best to see them through the filter and the lens of perfect, whole, and complete, but not finished. And so when my daughter or my sons are complaining about not getting a cookie or wanting to watch the iPad and I say no and they go into a tantrum, I don't take that personal. I don't even believe it. I'm just like, you're so cute. And what do you need? Come here.
Yeah.
Lay on daddy's chest. I'm so sorry. I know, baby. I know. It's still a no, but I love you. Come here. Can I kiss you? Right. And that type of energy is what she was desiring for me.
Yeah.
And I was making the mistake, just like I believe a lot of women do in partnership, making the mistake of thinking we're the same. We're not. We're not the same species. In my opinion, Alexi's a tiger and I'm a lion. Right? Both powerful, both amazing in their own rights, but we're not the same species. We have similar traits and things of that nature, but the hormones that flow through her body and the ones that flow through mine are not the same, and they don't occur at the same rate. She's tuned in and tapped into magic that I can't get to because I came in this masculine body, right? So honoring that magic and what comes with that magic, right? We all want the divine feminine when it's aligned and clean and perfect, but we don't want it when it's messy and fucking cutthroat. And so for me, learning to love all of it, to love the expression of her feminine, however it comes out, was and is the work. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you feel like practically that means that when she's going through stuff, it sounds like high vibration, low vibration, whatever the spectrum may be, that you feel the divine in her, you feel the light in her.
Right.
Yeah.
Yep. The name of the game is, what does her nervous system need? What does her little girl need? Right? How old is that? Right? What's showing? Is that a 14-year-old? Is that the 7-year-old version of her? Whatever it is. What does that part of her need? What is she really saying under what she's saying? Which is what I do with my clients. Right? When they speak something to me and I'm holding space for them, I'm looking for how they're breathing. I'm watching and taking in all kinds of stuff. I'm looking at the space in between and really taking in the words, but not believing them at that level, because there's always more. Right? Alexi and I fought. One of our first biggest fights was about a dish towel, and she wanted me to fold it in a particular way. And I was like, I didn't sign up for another mom. Right? If I want to fold it like this, I'll fold it like this. She's like, no, but I wash the dishes, so it should be folded like this. Well, that wasn't about the dish towel. Right? That had nothing to do with the dish towel and everything to do with our power dynamics and the control that both of our unconscious wounded egos were trying to grasp to in learning to live in the same space. Yeah.
Yo, this is ecstasy, the legal kind. So this is a formulation from my sexy supplement company, Mood, and this is designed to give you a natural body high. It's designed to be taken every single day as a supplement that can subtly retrain your nervous system to experience states of pleasure and ecstasy on a regular basis. So one of the reasons we stop desiring sex, we stop feeling erotically charged, we stop feeling just turned on by life, is because we lose our connection to pleasure. We lose our connection to the ecstatic. So I formulated this with the power of plant consciousness, the power of plant ingredients to be able to retrain your nervous system to feel more pleasure on a regular basis. When I started taking this, I literally, like no joke, I was like, I could redefine myself as a more joyful person because it felt that good inside my body. Most people, not everybody, but most people feel it right away. And literally, because you get to take it every single day, you can take it before like cleaning the house, doing the dishes, walking the dog. I also like to mix it with Sex Magic, one of our other products, before Netflixing and chilling, making out with my partner, going on a date. And it is so fun. It gives you this incredible rush. So this is available in capsule form or in drink powder form, which is matcha flavored. So you get to pick which one you like. And then we have given you a 15% discount for being a listener of this podcast. So that discount code is this Tantric Life 15. This Tantric Life 15 gives you 15% off. You enter it at checkout over at shopmood.com. That's MOOD, shopmood.com. Check out Ecstasy. It's so good. Literally, I personally can't live without these. So I would love to hear from you, like how you hold her that way while still holding her accountable, right? Because one of the things I keep hearing from people and talking to them about is how do we make space for the full expression of the divine feminine, but not enable the worst tendencies in women, right? Like how do you get the reflection to continue to because I understand exactly what you're saying. I crave the same thing in my partnership and partnerships, right? Like I want to be loved in my little girl. I want to be heard more deeply than the story, but not told that the story isn't real. You know, like that's where you like fuck it up. Where I'm sitting there like fighting with you about the dish towel, and you're like, this isn't about the dish towel. I'll be like, fuck you, it's about the dish towel. You know, so you can't be like told that in the moment. It's like it is apparently true to me in the moment that it's about the dish towel, but actually in another moment, I will admit that it was much deeper than the dish towel. So like there's a whole art to it, right? And how can you hold space for the feminine like that without enabling, right? Because like as a woman, I want my partner to love me and hold space for me. And I also don't want to just cycle in my trauma for life. I don't want to stay in unconscious power dynamics that maybe got imprinted from my childhood. I want to grow beyond that. So I'm curious how that happens. And first, so usually I take my sexy supplement line Mood with all of my interviewees, and we tried to get you to Los Angeles, but it didn't work. So sadly, you're in Austin, and I can't give this to you right now. But I'm going to take play in Sex Magic, and we'll see how it impacts me.
Awesome.
And then I would love to hear from you, your take on that.
For sure.
All right.
Go for it.
Actually, my CEO was like, Layla, no more drinking highballs out of the can. It's not classy. They got me glassware, and this will tell you a lot about me. I'm still just drinking highballs straight out of the can, even though we got like nice glassware with like actual spoons here. It's an uphill battle.
I hear that. For sure. You gotta honor your essence.
You know what? I can't tell sometimes if my essence is actually like classy queen bitch, and it's my conditioning that's kind of ratchet, or the other way around. You know, like if I'm trying to get into like the classiness, but actually I'm just like a tantrika, like eating picking bones off of the like grilled hyena I made or whatever in the graveyard. I think it's both. Yeah. I think honestly I'm both. Yes, exactly. Ratchet, tantrika, and a high priestess queen at the same time.
Exactly. It's
all right.
Dependent on the circumstance, whatever is necessary at the moment.
Whatever. I think that would be the end of my conditioning, right? Because my conditioning tells me, like sometimes it's like laziness that keeps me ratchet, which I would say that's kind of what was going on with the highball right there, just like sheer laziness. It's like, Layla, the cup is right there. And also from like showing up in my most fabulous, the way I'm dressed, the way like I've really stepped up in that way in the last couple of years. And sometimes, right, the conditioning is like, you always have to look this way. Like, you always have to be drinking out of the cup. Like, you can't just chug the highball on screen, or like wear the, whatever other people's blood soaked bike shorts on a 5-star cruise.
That is awesome.
And in some ways, like, I'm better at knowing my own magnificence while being kind of ratchet than I am in full like ownership of the queen because of my conditioning. So it's really about, I guess, finding like, what do you need to do to get free?
Truth. Because the idea of the queen is exactly that. It's an idea. It's something we've been sold, right? I've been deeply in the bush in Tanzania and different parts of India and Africa, and some of the quote unquote poorest women standing in their fucking true power.
100 fucking percent, man. 100%.
Yeah.
And there's almost like a deeper ownership of that sometimes, the more that a person learns to own their sovereign power in the face of some of the harshest realities of life. Right? There's a dignity that happens that people can choose. And it's like the opposite in some ways of the path of the victim. It's like, no matter what life throws at me, I own my dignity. I own my own power. I stand straight and tall. That kind of queen, that is a true queen. I also just mixed this with my finger, by the way, just so we're clear. Is there a gold spoon here? There's not. Anyways. All right. Supplements are done. I would love to hear from you that, and like your perspective of like, what is it to hold space for the feminine, but not enable the worst tendencies in the feminine, right? Because there can be this dynamic that can happen in conscious relationship where a woman's like, be a king, be in your power, hold space for me. But then I can just barf up all my unconscious trauma all over you. And men actually can get really hurt in that dynamic, that it can be unhealthy, right? So how do you navigate that in a way that Alexi feels held, but also held to her highest ultimately?
Yeah. Well, there's two pieces to this. One, I don't believe it's necessarily my job. I think that given that she is here to do her work, she's not a good example because she's pretty self-aware, and the moment she's back to regulated, she begins to look at the areas of improvement, like myself. However, I have held space and coached people on both ends of this. And I think it's all an invitation for each person and partner. And it will be that until each person actually gets it. So I can't say that I'm truly in my divine masculine if I'm allowing my boundaries to be crossed over often without any consequence or conversation or just reckoning with that thing. So in truth, when a man is truly in his divine masculine, yes, he will meet that person and that partner right where they are and help them get regulated back to some semblance of homeostasis and back to their hearts, back into their bodies, back into their truth. And then in that moment, after they are regulated, he will have a conversation about what is and isn't okay. If that doesn't happen, then that man more than likely is not in his divine masculine in that moment. And it will continue to be an invitation for both of them, right? Early in our relationship, I was very reactive. And so I would do the thing where I'd hold, explode. And then we'd be talking about and working through my explosion. And that all was an invitation for me to be more honest about what was occurring for me sooner. Because I grew up as in a scenario where my mom and dad were so stressed out that I didn't want to add more stress, this raging people pleaser was born. And and then add in dyslexia and special education and things of that nature, there was a part of me that felt like I always needed to make up for how bad I was, which was really just toxic fear and toxic shame. And so Alexi and I's relationship was an invitation for me to see that. Like, oh, you doing the dishes and then cleaning this and doing that and then running over here and writing her love letters and X, Y, and Z and doing all these things is a beautiful thing. But where you're doing it from is shame. Where you're doing it from is not ownership. You're doing it from, please love me. I'm not worthy. Make me feel worthy. Right? I was abdicating and giving her my power, which created distrust in her. And so on the surface and on paper, I was, Jesus of relationships. And yet anybody with a fine tooth comb and anybody with the true eye to see would be able to recognize that I was actually not showing up for her by allowing myself to operate the way that I did, and also her with not even sharing what my boundaries were, right? Until I exploded. And so it's a really tricky game. Relationships are like snowflakes. There's no one way to do them other than to continue to open where we want to close and to re-enter the room emotionally, because a lot of people leave, they disassociate and they leave and they can't deal, and so they divorce, they break up, they go find a new person, they go through the same process, they blame and shame and point over there and go do it again and again and again. And the gift of 10 years in is we've been through all those cycles 100 times to get to this place in this moment in our relationship where both of us are so clear about what's possible in these relationships that we're able to navigate some of the toughest storms you can navigate while having 4 kids under 5, 4 businesses, and a lot of things to hold between each other.
You. So I actually have seen this now as a pattern, right, of couples that do the work, stay in it, not a fucking walk in the park, right? I've interviewed other couples for this podcast, like cheating, literal, like breakups, one partner is a narcissist, right? Or like has really deep avoidant tendencies, and they do it, like they do the work. And there comes a glory period. And it's interesting. It's almost like around 8 years, they're almost like going to crack and like be done with it. And when they make that 10-year mark, there's like a golden blossoming, right? After all the hard work is put in and all the work is done. And it's curious to me. I'd love your take on this. I actually haven't come to a full conclusion about this, right? So when I was single and looking for answers, I did what every expert in sex, love, and relationship field does, which is I talked to all my friends and they didn't know the answers. And then I paid all the highest experts in the world and they didn't know. So then I just read random posts on Instagram and I was like, yo, we here now. And in those random posts on Instagram, there's a big culture of, I don't tolerate stonewalling. You're either in or you're out, right? I'm like it's this kind of like mantle of like perfect or get out, right? Divine masculine or you're out of here, right? And there's obviously, men play that game with women as well. Like I'm looking for the fairy tale. I'm looking for the dream woman that's going to save me. I'm looking for the woman who just makes me feel good all the time, right? We both have our own versions of what I'm looking for perfect rather, right? Rather than the relationship God wants me to have, if we want to go tie it back to the earlier comment. But I'm curious, how do we navigate a couple of different pieces that I think keep us from this 10-year partnership when you're with the right person, right? When it's true to be with them. The first piece is this, holy shit, every relationship has an alchemy to it, right? Like every relationship, the alchemy is true and real. And I'm looking into a mirror, so I'm always going to see myself. And so much of what's coming up, as you were saying, is ancestral. It's familial. It's, we have all grown up in a toxic, traumatized culture where we got taught to fear true intimacy, where no one got to be whole and fully in their spiritual majesty and power, where nobody got fully supported in their sexual eros, where nobody was raised with this belief that being in my true deep heart is safe. So of course we're all fucking floundering, trying to figure it out when it comes to relating. So like what would you tell a person who hasn't yet made that shift from it's you, right? And I did that for most of my relational life. Like, this is you. You're making me sad. You're making me triggered. You're not holding me enough, right? And you got to get to like a certain level of maturity, or just listen to people saying it enough. But probably it's the maturity thing where I was like, whoa, like if every man has made me sad, never held me well enough, let me down, and like I'm pretty miserable in most of my relationships, common denominator is fucking me, right? Like I'm actually the common denominator. So whenever you hear people be like, oh, all men are assholes, it's like, well, you're the common denominator. The asshole game. All women are untrustworthy bitches, right? Like my Uber driver was like, women are so untrustworthy. I was like, well, you're the common denominator in all these untrustworthy experiences with women, right? So how would you tell someone who's like, yeah, okay, I hear it, it makes sense, but like I still believe that my partner is the source of my problems, right? The source of the problems in the relationship. What do you tell them to help them make that switch?
Yeah, there's a few pieces here. My knee-jerk reaction often is, if there's one crazy person in the relationship, there's always two, right? The crazy may not look the same, but you attracted that person.
Totally.
So both of you have some work to do. Um, the other piece is reminding them, out of 8 billion people, you're getting an opportunity to help support and heal this person's nervous system. Out of 8 billion people now, right? And out of all of human history, this being has found their way to you. And the gift that is to weather the storm with them, knowing that no storm has ever lasted forever. There's never been a rainstorm or a lightning storm or anything that has ever lasted forever, but you get to sit there and be with them and hold their hand through this process. To me, it's about reframing the gift that it is to go through something with someone like that. One. Two, oftentimes, I'm coaching someone right now who on a call the other day said something to the effect of, I hate my current wife who's going to be my soon to be ex-wife.
Mm-hmm.
And one of the assignments I gave him, after acknowledging, hey, I hear that, man. I hear there's a lot of pain there. I hear you're pretty upset. Um, and sort of questioning, what do you think's under that, right? And what we obviously will always get to is sadness and feeling the betrayal and the disappointment of the dream that he thought it would be. And what I got him back to was like, hey, and I say this all the time, if you're going to leave at the top, not the bottom. Right? If you're going to divorce, if you're going to break up, leave at the top. Leave with your cup full. Leave knowing that you gave everything you possibly could. Leave as best friends. Leave remembering what brought you together and revisiting. And Alexi and I did this. I'm not just saying this. We did this. There was a point where we both grabbed 5 pictures from our past 10 years, it was at 9 years at this point. And we brought those pictures, and the assignment is to share why this was such a special moment, right? And so, we were in Australia, we were white river rafting on the Daintree, and there was this moment when I looked over at you and you were smiling so big and you were giggling, and it just felt like pure perfection, right? And so we're in the middle of what you would call a really big, heavy fight, and yet revisiting these memories helped us sort of like become sober again. What people don't realize in all of this is that they're intoxicated at this point, right? Once you start going into those states and those spaces of blaming and shaming and sort of pointing the finger, the body gets the signal that there's a threat, right? So this gentleman who I was working with, his wife is now the threat. And every time she enters the room, every time he thinks of her, his amygdala fires off, right? Which shuts down the part of his brain that can actually like see far and think about things in a different way, and sends all the energy to his thighs and to his hands for fighting, right? And so after I acknowledged him and helped him sort of re-regulate himself back into his body, I then invited him to go and tell me about some of the best moments that he's had with her. And I didn't try to talk him out. I said, I get it. You're getting a divorce, bro. I get it. She screwed you over. I'm not trying to talk you out of that. I just want to know what you love about her. Tell me 3 beautiful moments that you've had with this woman over the last 6 years. Right. And as he's going through these moments, the mind tries to go back, but yeah, it was still fucked up because X, Y, and no, bro, stop. Stay in the beauty. Like in that moment, what was beautiful about it? And Layla, to put a cap on this, to me, that is the work, is remembering that there's more that has occurred than the sort of like blanket screenshotted moments that we want to place on someone else for our current misery. And then just one more piece. I was teaching this last night. I was explaining that the sadness that somebody feels about a dog dying is not different than the sadness that someone feels about a boyfriend breaking up with them. Right? All it is we're pointing the sadness at a new piece of content, but it still occurs in the body the exact same way. Right? So that if I feel a surge of sexual feelings, and I say, oh, it was that plant. Cool. Awesome. This is a sexy plant. But when I feel it towards Alexi, right? Exactly. It's still the same biological experience occurring. And my mind is trying to point it at something. And that's the invitation that I would give to anybody who's trying to point it at men or men in LA or men dating apps and X, Y, and Z. Your consciousness is giving you an invitation to feel. And I would challenge anybody who's in that space to allow themselves to feel without being hooked into the story of what's true or not true. Right? Even if it's beautiful, I don't even hook in, right? Profane, profound. Don't give any shits because I'm just going to experience the beauty. It's like being on Molly without story, right? It's like when the mushrooms fully hit and you don't need story, right? You're so high, you're like, everything is God. I don't need any of it. Yes, right? Yes, and thank you. That's the mantra. Yes, I receive, and thank you for this moment. Yeah.
I think that's the hidden teaching in it, right? What you've just articulated is when I blame my partner for, let's say, my sadness, right? Which is something that I did for a really long time, right? My father was sexually abusive. I had complex PTSD growing up. So like, I'm just fucking sad, right? But as long as I got to point at my partner and say, you're the reason I'm sad, I never had to embody or heal my own sadness because I wasn't in direct relationship to my sadness. I was blaming my sadness on an external factor. So what I was trying to do was solve an external thing. Maybe you're the wrong person. You should behave differently. You should do X, Y, and Z. As long as I'm doing that, it's actually a hidden mechanism to never feel or address my own sadness. It's one of the ways that we secretly stay in our own conditioning. We stay in our own story. So one of the reasons why I think this switch for people to not want to see this in their own partnership is because once you see it, you become self-responsible for your own healing, right? And some people are going to be listening to this and be like, well, isn't sometimes you're sad because you're with an abusive partner because they're cheating on you? 1000% you can say, yes, I am choosing to be with someone that's bringing up my sadness. And maybe I don't want to be in this situation anymore. Maybe I don't want to do it with this person because it's toxic, because it's not working, because it's abusive, all these things. But I can say that I'm going to have to deal with my own sadness at some point or another, but I could find a healthier partner to do it with. I could find someone who's not doing really shitty things to me all the time to do it with, right? So this isn't like stay in toxic situations, because the truth is you're not going to be able to do that healing with someone who can't show up. And one of the things you've been saying about your partnership with Alexi is while you're not perfect and you mess up and make mistakes and can be unconscious sometimes, you fundamentally trust each other to do the work, right? So we're talking about this in the context of I fundamentally trust that we'll do the work, that we'll hold space for each other, that we'll see, that we'll be in therapy, that we'll do coaching, that we'll do the process, right? Like that's the foundation that we're assuming here. Once I say my sadness is mine, right? And I keep choosing men that ostensibly trigger my sadness, but actually I'm just fucking sad. What happens then is I'm like, oh, what do I do with my sadness? Like, and then it becomes a resolution process of this inner little girl is so sad. And the interesting thing is, while no one can heal that sadness for me, a partnership is the only thing that will trigger that particular relational sadness in me. I actually won't feel that when I'm single. I don't. I'm actually happier single. I've been less sad single than I am in partnership. So to be in partnership, I'm like, I got to face the motherfucking sadness. I actually have to feel this, right? And then I actually have to take care of my own sadness. I have to be with it. And as you said, the word, like embody it, right? Then I have to deal with it. So it's not just, oh, this is my stuff. I'm crazy and fucked up. End of story. Now I can be in partnership. No, it's like, okay, this is actually my work to do. But I think where a lot of people get lost is they think, my work to do is my own, but my partner should be this happy fairy tale place, right? But actually what's happening is your partner as mirror shows you the work that needs to be done, but your partner will show you specific relational work that needs to be done that you won't see anywhere else. And so it's this responsibility of suddenly being like, oh, okay, this is the actual resolution that needs to happen. This is the work I need to do. And what does it look like when I turn inwards and start taking care of myself rather than pointing outside at my partner?
Yes. Yeah, there's so much in that.
This episode is sponsored by my program, Bliss. What that means is that I have the joy of sharing this podcast with you because some of you will go on to join my programs. So Bliss, I have been teaching for 10 years. What does it do for you? It gives you a space to activate your highest pleasure, to fall in love with your body as a temple and experience the energetic magic and eros that is in you. How do I know it's in you? Because it is in every single woman and people of all genders that I have worked with. When they do these practices, they activate something inside of themselves that they never thought possible. Bliss trains you to have the ultimate orgasm. It's like you get the ultimate orgasm, but the kind of side effect is how deeply you fall in love with yourself. So the results that people get from this program are absolutely life-changing. It trains you to heal your sexuality, to address old wounding, to be able to face things like fear, guilt, shame, and shutdown, be able to love and heal yourself back into your magnetic radiance so you can have the best sex, the most incredible relationships that you were born to have. So Bliss, you can actually sign up today. So you can head over to laylamartin.com/Bliss. That's laylamartin.com/Bliss. You can also find that link down below to find out all the details of the program and to hop into this incredible life-changing program that will give you a deep dive, but also a gentle introduction to the practices of Tantra and sacred sexuality that you can carry with you for the rest of your life.
I want to point to something as well. First one is, in our society, we point to certain things and we say, that's bad, that's wrong, that's a terrible thing that person did in relationship. And this is for those of you who identify as women listening to this. What men talk about in their circles behind the scenes is death by 1,000 cuts, right? Men feel completely picked apart. And, I was working with a guy not too long ago, and he was sharing that, he was in the house doing something, and his partner came up to him and she was like, oh, you're just like not the kind of guy who takes out the trash, huh? And, first swipe, that doesn't seem like a big deal, but it is. It's a way to shame him. And instead of having a clear request, it's like little pokes like that over time create a scenario where this person doesn't like being around the person who they've chosen as their wife or girlfriend. And so first swipe, we go, oh, he reacted, he yelled, he cheated, he left her. While what we missed is 6 years worth of somebody picking this person apart, just destroying them in the way, maybe not purposely, but that's how men feel often. And they're like, oh, it's literally never enough. Anything I do becomes a problem, and I'm always somehow hurting you or harming you or whatever the case may be. And so,
okay. So the other question that I had with the, what's out there on Instagram, and that I've asked myself sometimes, I'm curious what your response is like, let's go back to that napkin story, right? Everyone's got a crazy. And one of the things that I love that Annie Lala says to me is like, you're well matched when you can love your partner's crazy. Like everyone's got a crazy. And that was one of the things that I said to my current boyfriend. I was like, I love your crazy. I don't know why. I don't know why I can love your crazy. And other men, I saw their crazy and I was like, I'm out. I can't do this, right? But I was like, you're crazy, and it can be pretty crazy sometimes. I can stand here and fiercely love it. Doesn't mean I don't want you to get better or do the work or be self-responsible around it, but like, I love your crazy, right? There's something to that. But a lot of the kind of dating advice out there is sort of like in relationship advice. Like if your person does X, Y, and Z, we're not talking the horrible, toxic, really bad behaviors. We're saying, if your partner, let's say, were to lecture you about folding a napkin, leave, right? Like, that bitch is crazy, or whatever the kind of like dating advice is out there. How did you know in your heart to stay? And Alexi, I'm sure 1,000 times over, chose you through your crazy, as you've alluded to. How did you know to stay through that versus bail?
Yeah, there's a lot to it. Just straight from my heart, I'd say I just knew that she was my one. Right? There's something that happens when you know that somebody is for you, where the extra mile is possible, and that was, it wasn't the case in many of my other relationships, and so as I started to sort of navigate, like, oh, this is a really big fight. This is a really big blow up. And yet all I want is to be closer to her. There's a part of me that wants to run. There's a part of me that wants to say, this isn't it. And there's a bigger part of me that knows this is it, knows that this is the ceremony. This is the portal. This is the place that I enter and open and grow as a man. And so I do think it sometimes just comes down to timing and maturity. Right. I've been with people and had friends who, were with somebody for 7 years. They broke up, didn't have a baby, nothing happened. And then the moment they get their next boyfriend or whatever, they're pregnant and I'm getting married. Right. And it's like, what? Right. But it's timing. It's timing. And I like to share this story. I had this dog named Spirit, and I used to take her to the dog park, and Spirit would come in, and some dogs and her would like meet up and they go, nope. And they keep going. And then other dogs, they'd meet up and they'd be like, I'm about to smell your butthole. And they'd be like, let's go. And then they'd like smell each other's buttholes and like do the thing. And like, what's the rhyme or reason to that other than we are energetic matches, right? There are certain dogs. She didn't want to smell every dog's butthole. She didn't want to do that. There were certain dogs' buttholes who she was like, that is it. I will sniff that for as long as I possibly can. And other dogs, they just would literally not even barely look at each other. It wasn't like I hate you. It just like we are not an energetic match. And to me, relationship is similar, right? No matter how good it looks on paper, if there's something about that connection in this time in human history that isn't it, it will end. And I think it's more about our desire to make everything last for 1,000 years that gets in the way. Because those interactions with Spirit and the dogs didn't need to be for hours, right? It'd be moments sometimes. And I'd look at that and go like, why is she's not suffering because that dog didn't want to stay around, right? But why am I suffering because it didn't work out with so-and-so? Oh, it's because I'm so attached to the time that I'm supposed to, right? My personality is getting in the way of what Spirit is trying to do through me with this person. That's the game.
And there's an element of surrender to that, right? Like the dogs aren't choosing which dog's butthole really works for them. And there is this element of surrendering to the partner who is true for you. And then I love what you said earlier, instead of having this list of like, yes, have ultimatums, have red flags, listen to those things. But at the end of the day, you're not looking for a perfect partner. You're looking for the partner where it's like, I want to do this with you. I want to go through the crazy with you. I want to go through the hard times with you. I want to have the fights with you. And I want to do all the beautiful things with you because it's you.
Hmm. Yep, that's exactly it. And just one last piece on the crazy thing. Crazy is a perspective, right? I've coached thousands of women who are like, my partner isn't in the work. What do I do? I'm like, tell me about him. Well, he like hangs out with his friends and he like laughs all the time and he's like enjoying his life. And I'm like, that sounds like the work. Sounds like he's living the thing while you're punishing yourself in self-development programs to get what he already naturally has. Well, he like plays video games and he like enjoys them. And I'm like, okay, so you do nothing except for this and sniff his butthole? Well, no, I like also go to Beyonce concerts. Okay, so your concerts are okay, but his video games aren't, right? Notice the hypocrisy that's hidden inside of this, right? And so crazy is a perspective. And to me, yes, initially it's like, oh, I do appreciate her crazy more than some others. Um, and it started to hit me that my perspective was completely tainted and covered by the culture I grew up in and the ideas that were fed to me through film and television, my parents, the school system, and the church. So if I take all these shoulds and all these unconscious agreements off the table and actually look at what's here, it's completely different when I change that filter.
Absolutely. All right, I got two. Well, I got a little rapid round of questions, but I got one last longer question for you, which is how did having children make you fall more in love with God, reality, or be more spiritual? And how did having children make your partnership stronger?
Boom. Kids are literally the best thing ever. It is one of the most powerful journeys anyone can take if they so choose, and if that's true for them in this lifetime, right? Not everybody should. We're going to adopt and we're going to foster. And we already have 4, right? So we'll probably get up to 7, 8, 10 kids. But I've always wanted that. And I truly appreciate it. They are the biggest like lessons for me. I learned so much through my kids and through children in general. Um, there's a primal love that I have never touched. I don't care what I've done at Burning Man. I don't care what ceremonies I've sat in, even with Alexi, and she'll say the same. The love that we both have for those kids is crazier. It hurts. It's like painful. It's visceral. I am them. There's so much overlap that there's not a drug in the world that can touch that when you really say yes to it. And so for me, kids has completely transformed everything for me because now I get to see that everybody's somebody's baby. Everybody's somebody's baby. Even the worst among us, and I'm doing quotes here, is somebody's baby. And that baby may have been led astray or had something occur. And what they really need is a hug. They really need daddy's arms. They really need a kiss. They really need to be rubbed, right? It's all the same things. When our kids fight about stupid stuff, in my mind, I'm like, oh, we do the same thing, right? When they politic about who's going to get the toy first or who's going to run down the street in front and all that stuff, I'm like, this is the same stuff we do just in adult bodies, but they're better at it because they don't hold on after they fall or fight. We hold on. So that's one. Two, kids are a beautiful insurance policy for relationships because it's not as easy to walk away or run away when you have kids, right? So if it wasn't for them, for sure, we would have had some moments that could have been slippery and scary. And I'm so grateful that they exist because they chose us as their parents. And a part of choosing us was all the stuff that was going to come up between the two of us. And so, oh man, I am forever grateful for these beautiful souls that chose us and the souls that died. Right? We had miscarriage, and I've had abortions. Um, the ones that didn't make it, I'm grateful for them all. Yeah.
All right, a couple rapid fire questions. What's your favorite thing about the state of orgasm?
The state of orgasm.
Yeah, like when you're having an orgasm, what's your favorite thing about it?
Ooh, the oof. I feel like a rainbow enters my body. I'd say that just
Yeah.
that and the like the single focus. It's like surfing, right? When I catch a wave on the ocean, there's nothing else that exists other than me and that wave and God, which all seem like the same thing. And that's what it feels like when I'm tuned into a present orgasm.
If there's one thing that you could tell every man on earth about sex, what would it be?
Ooh, practice opening your heart, because of porn and all the other things that many men have struggled with, including lasting forever. They think about their grandmother or, basketballs or something else, which then has them leaving and not, the heart's not there. Right? I didn't make love to a woman until I met my wife. That's the first time I made love. Everything else was just me trying to last and be better and, machismo stuff. So that.
And how do you actually open your heart in making love?
Presence, breath, tuning into the person and the being in front and the being that's occurring right there inside.
And the final thing, you referenced this earlier, but I think it's such a beautiful part of your transmission. For the men who are like, yo, I got to have it all together before I get into partnership. Like, I want to have my finances together, my career together, my shit together. I want to have done more therapy, more whatever. And they meet someone and they really want to be with her, but they're terrified. What would you say?
I would say that she, more than likely, given what is a part of the leveling up that is going to occur. Everything you want, everything you choose in this lifetime is going to come through that relationship or parts of it. And so you get to say yes to the yes that is occurring. It's here. She's here. This is the time.
And one last question. I know I said one last before, but I really want to hear this. For all the men out there who are on a spiritual path, on a personal development path, who are conscious, what has been your greatest teaching around fatherhood?
The fruit doesn't belong to the tree. It belongs to the ecosystem. The fruit is my words. The fruit are my arms. The fruit is the tender, loving care and the fierce no, and holding a firm boundary for my children. All of that is the fruit, and it does not belong to me. It belongs to them and the world.
Thank you, Preston, so much. This has been so beautiful.
I truly appreciate you. I love where you're going, what you're doing now, who you're being, and the evolution of you. Right? I've seen you through some relationships, and you're just a magical being. Someone asked me that the other day, just like off the cuff, like, "Oh, what do you think about Layla?" I was like, "She's dope. She's been here. She's been in the work. She's been in the practice, and of course, it's paying off because she's stuck around and is continuing to give her gifts. And all the people who are here just to be popular and make a bunch of money are falling off, and the people who've been here because they have to be here are rising up, and you're one of them."
I feel the same way about you. And I love that you said that before we started the podcast, like off the record, just we were sharing what we loved about each other. And that really touched me deeply, that like being in it for being in it for the right reasons is what gives you that level of longevity, right? It's what sustains you through all of it.
Truth.
Yeah.
Yep.
Oh, well, thank you. I love you so much.
Thank you. Blessings and blessings.
So I'm going to share with you a quick meditation that I use to come into more conscious partnership and to avoid getting triggered at my partner, blaming and shaming them for experiences. Now, this process sounds simple, and yet for me, it's been a lifetime's work. And something that I've had to learn over and over and over again is to slow down when I start feeling triggered and to really self-care in that moment, even if I have to withdraw, even if I have to take care of myself. Because one of the things I learned the hard way by seriously hurting my partner and seriously impacting their nervous system was that you can't take back what you say. You can never take back what you say. You can also not take back the most triggered behaviors in your worst moments. Does that mean that when that happens, you can't have resolution, you can't heal? You absolutely can. And you also can't be perfect in partnership. We all have our wounded parts, we all have our inner children. And yet the more responsibility you can take when you are triggered and when you are in pain, the more you will be able to care for your partner's nervous system and the nervous system of your collective we. The more that you do that, the more safety and love you'll feel. And over time, the more sexual attraction as well. Because we're not sexually attracted to people that hurt us over and over and over again that we don't feel safe with. So creating a foundation of safety in our experience also helps us stay erotically charged and attracted to each other over years and then decades. So I'm going to invite you to go ahead and close your eyes. And what I invite you to feel is maybe the last time you got triggered in any kind of relationship or your partnership. And I want you to notice, if you're like most people, that the moment you get triggered, there's this impulse to go out. And you might go out with attack. You might go out with defense, which is still a form of going outwards because you're defending yourself against the other, which is external. You might go to sadness. You might go to dissociation. You might go to withdraw. But the trigger often pushes us out towards the other person and then to respond to them from a place of trigger. So when you start to feel triggered, I want you to actually feel it in your body, like the last time you got super angry or super sad or in a really deep story about your partner, the person you've been relating to. And the first thing I want you to say to yourself as you start feeling that arising emotion, the arising anger, the arising sadness, the arising story, is I'm in pain right now. I'm in pain. This cuts us from going outside to them and brings it back to us. If I'm angry, I'm in pain. If I'm sad, I'm in pain. If I want to attack or defend, I'm in pain. If I want to blame or shame my partner, I'm in pain. If I want to dissociate, I'm in pain. The moment that we can own that we're in pain, we can also own that the invitation is to take care of ourselves. So oftentimes when we're triggered, the impulse is to go out, but when you're out, you've now abandoned yourself and you can't take care of yourself anymore. So what I invite you to do when you feel, oh, I'm in pain, is to actually move back down inside of yourself, feel the underlying pain or emotion, and be with yourself. So if that part of you was a hurt child, the right response wouldn't be to attack them or defend against them or yell at them or blame them. The right response would be to hold them, to love them, to make it feel safe and okay to have their experience, but to also protect them, not let them lash out, and to not let them hurt anybody else, any other child, any other thing around them. I want you to have that same relationship to the part of you that's in pain. What would it look like when you start getting triggered, instead of going outwards to your partner, to come inwards to yourself? It's literally coming down and inside, feeling the part of you that's in pain, holding it, loving it, and recognizing it as your own. It's yours. The same as your eros is yours, your heart is yours, your magic is yours. No one can give it to you or take it away. Your sadness is yours too. Your anger is yours. Your fear is yours. What does it look like to hold yourself, take care of it, and cradle it? So this is a simple process, but it can be so powerful. From there, you can ask yourself, what do I need? You can take some space if you need to with your partner until you can actually talk to them, not from your most triggered or upset part, but from the part of you that knows how to hold you, the part of you that knows how to recognize when you're in pain. From there, you can speak to your partner, have a much more integrated and beautiful conversation. The more often you do this, the more talented you'll get at recognizing triggers, giving yourself what you actually need, and over time, resolving pain, not by blaming, shaming, or attacking or defending against your partner, but by actually loving yourself. Over time, this integrates you, helps you to create a more secure relationship to yourself and therefore your partner, and gives you a much greater space inside of your nervous system to communicate to your partner with love and care. Thank you so much for being here, for listening to this Tantric Life. Thank you for making it to the end of a podcast. That is an accomplishment. And if you want to learn more, if you want practical tools and guidance in Tantra and sacred sexuality, then head on over to LeilaMartin.com, sign up with your email address. You're probably like, email, what is this, 1996? Let me tell you, my emails are special. They're also so not safe for work that we send them on Sundays because they are chock full of some of the most licentious education that you are ever going to find. So I share in-depth tantric trainings, practical tools that you can incorporate into your life every single day. I also talk about really embarrassing and shocking moments from my own life as I guinea pig this entire tradition for myself in my own life. And if you want to stay connected, that is the way to stay connected. We also have incredible resources there. So if you want to learn sex magic, breath work, couple sex practices, tantric sexuality on the website, you can get those trainings for free if you head over and check it out, LeilaMartin.com. Finally, go ahead and follow me on Instagram. Don't miss a single reel. That's at the Layla Martin. You can also follow me on YouTube to make sure you don't miss any of these podcasts. That is Layla Martin. And thank you once again so much for being here. I can't wait to share more with you.